Welcome to the Marketing for Startups podcast. If you're trying to figure out marketing for your startup, then you're in the right place. In this podcast, we go high level, looking at the intersection of branding, data, and leadership to offer you a marketing playbook to grow and scale. Join me each week for in-depth interviews, tactical advice, and practical trainings. Hi, I'm your host, Victoria Hajar, veteran marketer and startup enthusiast. I promise to bring my experience and curiosity to each episode. Then together, we'll peel back the onion on this ever-changing discipline that is marketing. I'm so happy you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome to this week's episode of the Marketing for Startups podcast. This week, I'm taking you behind the scenes of the Sales and Marketing Growth Accelerator, which is my year-long accelerator program specifically designed to help female founders get from 6 to 7 figures in revenue in their business. And as part of the program, we have fabulous experts that we welcome into our community each and every month who talk about their area of expertise to help you learn new marketing tactics, help you grow your business. And this week, I'm sharing an amazing workshop that was given by Scout Driscoll, who is a branding expert, a design expert. She's the founder and CEO of Design Scout, a branding agency, and its wine industry division, Vint. Now in her 21st year of business, Scout prides herself on her studio's commitment to uplifting startups and strategically involving end-ups, providing laser-focused, effective design and business strategies. Clients appreciate Scout's deep acumen for working with clients across industries, her insights into customer behavior, and her keen understanding of the language of design. Scout is especially proud of her all-women studio's dedication to uplifting women entrepreneurs and building authentic and honest brands. She's a frequent speaker, was recently a panelist for the Beverage Tasting Institute's International Packaging Design Awards, and was honored to judge the 2020 Restaurant Development and Design Magazine Awards. She is a brilliant designer and an awesome human, and I'm so excited to be able to share her teachings with you all. So go ahead, get your pen and paper out because you're going to be taking notes. This one's a juicy one. A mastermind session with us talking all about branding and how to build a killer brand for your business, going from good to great, right? So we're going to say we're going to learn about what are the elements of a great brand. How do you start creating a great, better brand for your business? So Scout, tell us a little bit about how you started as a brander, how you started the agency, and why you're passionate about branding before we get into the juicy meat of the workshop.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so nice to meet everyone. It's a pleasure. So as Tori mentioned, today we're talking about the secret sauce of killer branding. And just to dig in, I do have a little bit of an intro. So we have myself, I have been in branding and design for 20 years. I'm the founder of Design Scout, which is a Chicago-based studio and an agency. We're an award-winning full-service design firm as well. And I got in branding because I am obsessed with founders. I only work with founder-driven brands, and people who like me are who I call fit faux entrepreneurs. Figure the F out. So, I started my business at 23 years old, and since then I've had the pleasure of working with really almost 400 brands, helping them grow and really evolve their branding to be that bespoke brand that really resonates with their customers, helps them feel like $1 million, and helps them grow and know their brand is working for them. Awesome. So that's a big part of it. And like I said, we work with those 400 brands. We're really great at brand evolution. So today I'm going to share with you guys some of the key ingredients that you can consider as you think about evolving your brands and really know how your brand is going to actually move the needle. So super excited.
It's so important. It's so important. Okay. And branding ROI. This is something that everyone asks about, right? So how do you conceptualize the ROI of brands? This is so good.
That's a great question. So, why is branding worth the trouble? Why is it worth the investment? You're probably thinking, hey, it's professional. It gets the job done, right? Especially in business-to-business brands. But there's a really big difference between a good brand and greatness. So for us, we like to think a little bit about, your customers, right? A great brand is going to convey that value and that culture and that point of view in the blink of an eye. So that's really where that ROI comes in for someone engaging with your brand. For your team, it's all about, inspiring and bringing those values that you have as a founder into your brand, making sure that that resonates through your company culture. So brand is building company culture. And then most importantly, great ROI for you is when you have that confidence that your brand is working for you. And I always talk about how, a brand has to feel like that bespoke custom outfit. It is that number one power outfit you put on when you're networking. It is that thing that makes you feel amazing because it reflects you authentically, right? And it's a brand it's an outfit that you walk around in that you really feel great about. So a great brand is also all about confidence for a founder, for business development, for marketing, and knowing that your brand is doing the heavy lifting for you before you even open your mouth.
And I think that this also is connected to the fact that almost every vertical is so flooded right now, right? The barrier to entry is so low. The bar is so low to get started with a business that almost the saturation at every angle, right? And your brand is really it really helps with that differentiation, right? If you're just doing the bare minimum and everyone's just doing the bare minimum, the one that puts in more effort to curate, to create, it's going to stand out. And that is going to also help with that ROI in the end, right?
Absolutely. And it's also going to give you a resource for as you think about your marketing, as you think about how you stand out from your competitive set. All of those pieces are so critical for just making your life easier as a founder. So today I want to talk a little bit about kind of the 7 simple tools of brand that we use here at the studio. And I know in this class and on your podcast before, you've talked a little bit about ways to think about your story and your communication, but these are a little more foundational. These are really going to be about how you make choices about your brand, both from the written word into how you engage, your visual branding as well. So first for us, and it's really, pretty obvious, but think about your consumer insight. People, I know this is a newsflash, but people are whole humans. They're not just sitting there engaging with just your product or your service or your brand. They have an entire life beyond your product, right? So how do you meet them where they are? Really understand, that insight of why do they need your product or service in their lives? Really honing down on exactly like what that main checkbox is that you're checking for them. We also think about what we call our brand spirit or your key emotional driver. Your customer is going to choose a product or your SAS because they need it, but they're going to choose yours because of how you make them feel. So make sure you understand, like, what is that core emotional driver behind your brand first and foremost. You want to make sure it's compelling. You want to make sure it's authentic. I always talk about how like Harley Davidson doesn't sell high torque motorcycles. They sell freedom. They sell independence. That feeling of the open road. What is that freedom for your brand? And then how do you exude that in all of your marketing as you move forward?
Yeah. This one's so important. And I think a lot of people disregard this for B2B, but I think it's just as important.
And I'm going to show you guys some things about differentiation in B2B, and we're going to see just how little emotion there is, and that people play it really, really safe. So we'll get into that a little bit too, how there's just a lot of spirit missing. And then, step 3 is really understanding your key messaging themes. I call this facts and feels because we like to break it into 4 key messaging themes. 2 are going to be focused on what it is that you're offering, the nuts and bolts of what you do. And then the other 2 are going to be about that positioning and that feeling. So, your core tenets or your themes for your brand can be about, the facts of your service and what you do differently. But it also could be about the fact that you just make people's lives easier, which I hope in some way your product or service is. But it helps to have 4 key things chosen ahead of time as you go into your content marketing, your thought leadership, your website copy, etc. So think ahead about what are those key themes. We've got your brand point of view too, and this is what I get really excited about. This is the driving why behind your brand and what proof do you have to back it up. So for example, if your brand believes that, the sales process is just way too complex, your brand point of view can be all around the idea, like, we make it simple. This should be simple for you. So what do you believe in? And what are those key reasons to believe that? So think about not just your point of view, but how you bring it to life. Why should someone believe you when you say that that is important to you? If I believe sales should be simple, my tool should be incredibly easy to use. So it's going to kind of fulfill that brand point of view. And this is basically your why.
I love this because this is sort of like where the mission and values like come to life. Because I think a lot of times folks like we have these buzzwords of mission, the values, and you kind of like write this. But what you're saying is sort of like, how do you walk the walk? Like, how do you communicate to your audience what those mission and values are? Because if you do believe like it should be simple, it's, well, what are the things that you do that you can share with your customers and your clients that prove that you believe that, right? Because it's not just words you put on a piece of paper and then you file away forever. There, you actually want to act on these things, these beliefs, and these values, right? So making that clear is really, really important.
Absolutely. And we don't do any mission, vision, value work in our studio. To me, that's so much more, and to each their own, but for us, it's not so actionable, right? And if you go to your website, people often confuse your mission or your vision as copy for your website.
Yeah.
Oh, I've got it written. I'm going to tell people where I see my business going and how I see the world changing by what we do. Or, our mission is to make things better, but that's not telling the person why they care. What's in it for me is really that filter that you have to put every single thing that you do. And so when you have a brand point of view, and when you're talking about, that big why behind your brand, you want to connect it with your consumer, because they're looking at this going, why? Why do I care? Like, what's in it for me? What am I getting out of it? So that's where that brand point of view can be really helpful. And speaking of why we care, think about your key value props. Why should anyone care about it? What's going to pull on their heartstrings, tempt their intellect, make them feel great buying your product or engaging with your service? And also, this is where you can dig into your competitive set a little bit too. Your value prop has got to be different than everyone else's value prop. So be really mindful of what are those things that are checking that box of what's in it for me, for your consumer. And I know, we're talking about B2B, we're talking about brands that are offering, a service, or software as a service, or maybe, this is an accounting team, et cetera. But people are people. And I think every brand is B2P. At the end of the day, you are connecting with a human, and that human, you need to understand things like, what generation are they from? What kind of technology do they engage with? Why is your product or service really going to be a benefit and help them have a better life? And think about that from their perspective.
Oh,
why do they care?
I love that. And one of the things I find so interesting, and you touched on that about the generation they're from, right? There's all these interesting studies that you can find on the internet or whatever. I'm sure you guys are so intimate with it. With, depending on what generation you belong to, how individuals perceive brands. Do they trust? What's the level of trust? Because if you're talking to boomers versus millennials, and this is where I think the magic of the brand really comes in, right? Because the look, the feel, the actual imagery and the copy that you use are going to play into that. And I'm so excited for you to show us how this stuff comes to life. But keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And also too, like 90% of millennials crave an authentic experience with a brand. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, a lot of B2B businesses don't know what that means for them.
Yeah.
If you can't say what's authentic about your brand, and you're looking like everyone else, or you're just trying to look professional, then you're missing a huge opportunity to be, a founder-driven brand that people actually connect with, and that they have a value and they want to support you and your business.
Yeah.
We spent, so a lot of our work is in the consumer space. We do a lot of work in food and beverage, restaurants, wine and spirits. Yeah. And that's why B2B businesses love working with us, because we bring that personality into business, and we allow you, I always say, show a little leg, be yourself. I truly believe you can be yourself in business and still be successful, and in fact, be even more successful because of it.
Absolutely. And that I think is where opportunity comes in, right? Because as you said, and I can't wait to see these examples that you pulled, but with everyone playing it safe, right? For you to be a B2B brand, for example, that kind of takes a page out of the playbook for the direct to consumers, for example, how much you'll stand out, that differentiation, right? And again, in this crowded market space, that's worth everything, right? Because it's going to grab people's attention. Oh, and the brand voice, love it. Talk to us about brand.
The brand voice, you really want to think about how you keep your voice consistent, how it translates all of those feelings from that step one, that brand spirit and North Star, into a really relatable approach as to how you speak to your customers. It's going to set a tone for your look and feel. Is your brand intense? Is it approachable? Is it competitive? That voice work is groundwork for not just what you say and how you say it, but actually what your brand looks like too. And, as a designer, I really love when we do our voice in the brand strategy phase, because that's going to tell me exactly what your brand looks like. So for example, one of your core tenets or core key talking points might be, well, we have efficient delivery of these widgets. And it's like, that's a really important thing to say about your brand. But how are you going to say it? Are you going to say it in like a really like pumped up, amped way? Or, but if you're like efficient widget delivery, what does that even look like? But if you tell me this is a brand that is confident, that it is, has kinetic, that it's really inspired, those have design cues. So now I know this brand is going to have bold colors, high contrast, lots of, moxie in its visuals. It's going to have passion, as it's going to look like energetic. And then I say, oh yeah, we're delivering the widgets, but we're doing it in a really fast, cool way. Got it. So from a design perspective, this brand voice actually is just as important for the visuals as it is for how you write your copy. And we'll show you some examples of that in a little bit as well.
I do want to go on that for 1 second though, because I knew that we were going to be having this session, I've been paying attention to this a little bit more in the past week. And I've run across 2 or 3 brands. And these are like promoted videos on social, right? So it's like their ads. And what I've seen a couple like really glaring kind of mismatch in the visuals and the brand voice. So for example, I saw one product the other day that was this really beautiful stones that looked kind of like stones you'd see in a spa. And they have all these kind of interesting use cases for, the stone dries very quickly and it's very beautiful. So you feel like the brand look and feel was very like spa feeling, right? But the voice was this like sarcastic kind of jokey kind of thing. And for me, I just thought like, wow, there's such like a mismatch with what I'm seeing and the design of the product and how the website feels and all of that stuff versus the words that are coming out of the mouth in this advertisement or the actual copy, right? And you want that to be that fit, which is what you were just talking about, right? Because you want all of this to make sense. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to, that consistency in the voice and the visuals builds the strength of the brand, right? Because people know what to expect. And getting it wrong, it feels awkward. Like the customer and the client feels it,
Yeah, it'd be like going to a house party and you come in and speak to one person in your British accent, and then you go to the next one and you talk like a football player, and then you go to the next one. It's like that consistency really blends into a broader idea of trustability, right, and confidence in that brand. So, so really knowing your brand voice before you put, I like to say pen to pixel, like before you even begin to think about your visual identity, is really important. So it keeps you on lock, and it needs to grow out of those original pieces about your brand spirit, about your value props, about your differentiators. All of these pieces, need to be based on top of one another. And then lastly, so far, everything we've talked about is really internal, right? They're the guiding principles for how you make choices about your brand. You would not ever tell someone, hey, my brand voice is this. One time we did one of our core talking points, or the spirit of the brand for a client, was confidence. And you would never walk up to someone at a house party and be like, hi, I'm Scout, I'm confident.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things, you just never say it out loud. It needs to resonate and help you make choices. But what happens then is now we're going to convert all of that into external messaging. And so based on these decision-making, tools, then I want you to go ahead and create your brand messaging, have your brand pieces ready to go based on all of the things that we did. Take those 4 key talking points, give yourself a few sentences about them, blend them into one bigger brand statement, your about statement. I recommend having a full suite of your about statement as it would live on your website, your about statement as it lives on your LinkedIn. Understand how that statement is different between your customers, the media, and your investors if you're looking to grow and get some financing as well. So really have different versions of your about statement for different things ready to go. Keep it in your pocket at all time. If you do not have a brand messaging deck already, this is something that I really want you to create. And I want you to not create it until you've gone through the first 6 steps. And really give yourself, key messaging. We also give our clients, 10 to 15 of what we call our power statements or taglines. And, they're the just do it's of your brand that are based on those talking points, and they really bring them to life. So you'll be able to see how you can convey all of that quickly, not only visually, but with your words as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now we have, we talked about the makings of a great brand, those foundational pieces. Let's dive into what makes a brand great. And these are some ways that you can look back on your brand. You can look back on others' brands and really say, like, are they doing it right? And so I'm going to walk you through a handful of ways that I judge brands. And then we're going to roast a couple of brands.
Oh, yeah.
I shouldn't say roast. Maybe we'll roast. So really, the very first basics when you're looking at someone's branding, and I'm showing you some websites with this. If you're listening to audio, I'll go through some examples of how this comes to life. But really, you have to ask yourself about evaluating branding. Does this brand make it easy? Is it abundantly clear what this company offers and its value at a glance? In the blink of an eye, you need to know what it is that they do, what they're going to do for you. And I have on screen an example of a project management tool. I think this might be Asana. And they say manage projects efficiently, even when priorities shift. I don't know that they're doing a great job here. I think I understand what it is that they're doing, but the value of it is kind of missing for me. They get a little bit into it, but you just have to make sure that your brand messaging, your marketing pieces really make it super abundantly clear immediately. What do you do, and why do I care?
Yeah. Well, and how could this evolve, right? Because I think this statement, manage projects efficiently, going back to what you said about why should they care? Do you think that your person is sitting there? I've never sat looking for a project management tool saying, which one of these are going to be most efficient? That's actually not something that I would ever think of. What I think of is can there be a project management tool that doesn't make my eyes go crossed and make me want to pull out my hair kind of thing? And I don't know if efficiency is really what's hitting with my heartstrings, right? Or what's hitting with really what's piquing my interest. Now, here's obviously saying, okay, you're talking to someone that wants efficiency and their priorities are shifting a lot. Okay, maybe that's the person. But I think, as you said, I want to choose a project management tool that's going to be easy to adopt for my team, easy for me to so easy for me to just check in and out of and get the status quickly. So this is a very good example of what you have on the team, because on the screen, it says manage projects efficiently, even when priorities shift. That bit of text is so freaking important, because that's probably what everyone's going to read, and whether it pings them inside or not depends on whether they're going to read anything more, right? So this is where all this stuff really, really turns into conversions, right?
Absolutely. And we were talking about, that point of view. I get no point of view from this. Mm-hmm. This brand does not say, hey, project management should be easier. Mm-hmm. All of us have enough going on. This should be easier for you. There's so much opportunity here to really dig into those basics.
Yeah.
But just to recap, step one, asking yourself, does brand make it easy? Are they abundantly clear what they do and why I should care at a glance? Mm. Another thing I like to think about is that brand culture. Asking yourself, does this brand express a culture? And I'm going to tell you, most B2B businesses absolutely do not. And there is huge opportunity in the space. So I have a photo pulled up right now of Liquid Death mountain water, which unless you live under a rock, you've probably heard of Liquid Death. But Liquid Death, and something I want you to think about for other brands is this brand inviting you to be part of something bigger? And do you see how the right consumer is going to look at this and think, wow, that's a brand for people like me? Unless someone can have that aha moment of this fits into my lifestyle, and then you think about that consumer insight and how you are checking that box. And this is not, I did say it has to be appropriate for the right consumer, but lean into a culture for your brand. Don't be afraid to have a point of view for your brand that people can say, I want to be part of that. That can be something for people like me. In my business, and I've been doing this for 20 years, just in the last year, I realized how much that for us, it is founder-driven brands. And as much as I try to land those giant businesses, hey, big companies hire me, I don't love that work. I love working with people who have built something from the ground up, scrappy founders who are driven. And so, when you come to our website, you're going to see that it is all about founder-driven brands, and that is the place for people who are making a change and all of that. So think about, if someone's looking at your brand, your product, your service, and they're saying, wow, that's for people like me. Who are they? What is that culture that this brand expresses? We do a lot of counterculture branding here at the studio. And sometimes we'll take someone like, we work with a company called Bamco, and they're a promotional product business. And like every other promo product company, they're putting logos on water bottles. But we actually realized that they had just this huge culture of impact, and that they're solution driven. And, for example, during the pandemic, when Peloton was losing customers left and right because their bikes were taking like 6 months or 9 months to people. Their attrition was like 17, like 50% of people were canceling their orders. And this company, this promotional product company, didn't just give them water bottles. They gave them an entire promotional product solution that saved their attrition rate by 17%, because you would sign up for your bike, and then a few weeks later, you get this beautiful box in the mail. You'd have this like page beautiful magazine with stories of all of the people who are the instructors, and then you could scan the QR code and select your $300 sweatshirt for free. So that's, so we built this culture of change makers and being independent, and gave this very counterculture brand in a sea of people who are like, I'll get you 80 bottles for $20. So that's where you can really see that culture infusing. So are you doing something different? Are you a little bit of a counterculture? If not, who is the culture that your brand belongs to? And don't be afraid to show that. So that's just something I ask myself when I'm evaluating other brands.
I love that. And just back on that point though, because I think something I rub up against with founders, and maybe you can just speak for 1 second on this, is sometimes there's a hesitancy or a fear of doubling down on this, because there's this idea of wanting to capture more opportunities, right? What do you think are the benefits from honing in on this culture and who you're for, rather than keeping that more open?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly playing it safe, right? Like there's the opportunity to say, well, I want to get 10% of everyone in the world.
Right.
But what I want is to get 100% of your 10%, because that 10% is going to tell everyone they know about you.
Yeah.
So for example, I just signed up for a new payment partner for my studio, and they have just met me where I need to be. They've been amazing, making it so easy for our customers to pay or do a payment plan or auto pay, etc. And I just went onto this Slack channel of other, creative agency founders, and I was like, dude, you guys got to get this service. It's so good, because I am their 10%. And that makes me this evangelist and this super fan of your brand. So I do, I understand the risk, and it's so clear looking at B2B business culture that everyone is just doing the same thing as everyone else because they're afraid to stand out. Yeah. But from my perspective, it really is such a value to have your customer, not just some of every customer.
Yes, I love that. Awesome.
So the next thing I look at when I'm evaluating a brand is, does it play to your ego? Does it make you feel good about yourself for choosing it? So I have pulled up the website for Chief, which is a woman founder or woman executive networking club that a lot of people know about. And it says, women have always been powerful. That's their mic drop headline.
Yeah.
And I see that brand and I think, heck yeah, I'm a female founder and I want to be part of that. So, there has to be a little bit of swagger in your brand to make people proud of the fact that they own that. I considered for this slide putting a photo of someone wearing an Apple Watch. What are those brands that we really connect with, that connect to our lifestyle, but also make us feel a little extra special because we're part of it? If you can build that kind of membership vibe, that feeling of I'm the best of the best because I affiliate myself with this brand, then it's a really great brand. That's a great opportunity.
It's so powerful. I'm going to give you like a real life example. So I do, like, one of my big passions, I'm a CrossFitter, right? So I have that identity. And I remember I'm not wearing it now, but they have this, there's a lot of sleep trackers and calorie trackers and all of these things out there, right? Apple Watch can do that and Fitbit. But like all of the athletes wear the Whoop. It's called the Whoop, right? It's just like a black band. It has a very very specific design, like a very recognizable design. And I remember being at a networking event once with with a panel of speakers or whatever. And one of the panelists I was chatting with, and they recognized that I was with the Whoop. And it was so powerful and so interesting because we connected on this level of like, I know who you are in a way because of this, right? And other brands that do a really great job aligning themselves with their community, like kind of like being a part of something bigger, just like in the Liquid Death, if you think of yourself as a musician, for example, because that's like the ethos of the brand, that's like the origin of the brand, you're going to feel part of that bigger culture when you have that in your hand. And that's what you dream of. That's what the dream of a good branding does, right? Just like Apple, you feel more creative. You feel like you are fulfilling your wildest dreams because this brand helps you to like integrate all of that into your life, right? So I love the idea of the ego, because I think that's where it crosses over from the imagery and the pictures or whatever to you actually affecting how someone feels when they interact with your brand, right?
Yeah. Or like, and even when it comes to like, software as a service, we for like 8 years used a service called FlowDoc here at our studio for our group chat. And we would chat with each other all the time. And then one day I did a trial for Slack. And then all of a sudden we were a Slack company, and Slack is all the cool. And then now I have like other communities in my Slack, or like all the coolest communities that I know have a Slack channel. I can like pop over there for a few minutes. And so like even, that brand plays to my ego. And to a certain extent, it's because it's so ubiquitous and because it's really like the premium product within that industry. But it also made me feel good to say, oh, I'm going to Slack you versus flow you, which is always a dumb word.
Exactly. Or even think about this, Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
That is not for cool, hip, young, vibrant startups, founders, right? But again, like being able to say, like, just Slack me as the founder of the agency, doesn't it make you feel like you've built something that is like all of the stuff associated with that, right? So it's very powerful.
So make people feel great, really make sure there's something about your brand that plays into folks' ego. And then, of course, this is, kind of the cost of doing business, but ask yourself, does a good brand differentiate? Does it feel distinctive? Does it convey a sense of style and a unique personality? Or is it super overly trendy and generic? I'm just going to skip to the next slide. So, right here on the screen, I have an example of Calendly. It's a little poppy. It's got, little colorful headshots of people floating around it in some different colors. But I did a little bit of a scan of other B2B websites. And so here you're going to see Calendly, Toast, Salesforce, Opportune, Accessibility, Action Opportunity Fund. And this is 6 websites that and this is one of my rules I use for branding too. If I could retype your name into someone else's name and it works, you don't have a brand, you have a logo.
Yeah.
And the same thing, like I could so easily put the Toast, which is a service for restaurants, on the Salesforce website and swap their logos, and it would kind of work. Same thing for Calendly versus Salesforce. Like everyone's got literally the exact same website design. And I know somewhere some UX designers saying, well, this has been proven to be most effective scientifically, and this is how we convert people, and that button on the top right. And I get there's a science behind it, but also like what happens when you go to a site that looks completely different?
Yeah.
That stands out. And then it's
I'll
still,
tell you,
it's insane.
I'll tell you what happens is there's no loyalty. So I think Calendly, I love that you brought up this example, because I wonder for me, I've been very not loyal to my scheduling tool. Like to me, they're all interchangeable. And when you think of different products or services within different categories, a lot of them And maybe actually the execution of it is not very interchangeable, but the brand will make you feel like there's something unique or different. And that will help with loyalty. That will help with, you know, the advocation, if that's or having people be advocates for your brand, like what you said, shouting it from the rooftops. And this is such a interesting exercise. For everyone looking at this visually, this is such an interesting exercise because really you could swap out any of these homepages.
And I tell you, Tori, I spent like 2 hours yesterday trying to find brands that didn't look like this in the B2B world. And this is, for those of you listening at home, I have a scheduling service. I have a way for restaurants to do orders within their restaurant, software for ordering at restaurants. I've got Salesforce, which is a sales CRM. I've got a way to Opportune, which is like a loan and money management and saving software. I've got Accessibility, which is a website for making websites more accessible. I've got the Action Opportunity Fund, which is, small business loans. Every single goddamn site looks exactly the same. It is ridiculous. So ask yourself, what makes this brand different? And I would give every single one of these brands an F when it comes to differentiation. I think, some of it too is one thing that's really important on the web is accessibility. And making sure sites have high contrast and are easy to read, and they work with screen readers and et cetera. But there are tools now. In fact, Accessibility is the tool I'm showing here that will allow you to take a more engaging, visually different website and make it very accessible for everyone across the web using AI. So don't let that be an excuse. Show a little leg, people. Come on.
Yeah, I love it.
So now, based on those criteria, I thought, Tori, you and I could go through and ask ourselves about a couple sites. So the first brand I pulled up was Slack. And so this is the Slack homepage. So take a look at the Slack homepage. So do these guys have a clear and valuable offering?
Well, it definitely looks different than the other slide. Definitely is not looking like that interchangeable B2B, right? Because we've got some colors that pop. Made for people, built for productivity. I think it's such an interesting exercise just to look at these headers and say, does it mean anything to you, right? Move faster.
I don't know what they offer. It says move for people built for productivity, and it says move faster with your tools in one place. I cannot tell you, it does look cooler by 5 degrees than the other things because it has purple background. Yeah. But it doesn't tell me anywhere that this is a group chat program.
No. And also, we obviously have this emotional connection to Slack, which I think was built more on the backs of it's kind of their network effect that's built into what their product is, right? And it's spread by word of mouth, which is amazing because the product is really good. But on the front end, you're right. It's not really dazzling. I don't know in 1 second even what it is. If my mom was looking at this, I don't think she would know what the F Slack does.
Yeah, and there's a couple screenshots that kind of show you people talking, but and I think really they're leaning on the fact that everyone already knows what it is, right? Slack is ubiquitous, but yeah, so I don't think they're very clear about their offering and the value behind it. They're saying this makes you more productive, but I don't know. Do they express a culture? Is there any culture vibes here?
No, but it's so interesting because they're totally not leaning into the huge pain points that they relieve for folks, right? It's get out of your inbox with 100 million messages, keep everything organized. And I think that this culture that you and I were feeling so connected to in terms of the coolest startups, all of the young, vibrant teams, that all the remote, all the global teams, all these things, everyone's on Slack, but you don't see any of that here, don't see any of that here.
I think they're really missing
not even in the logos that they have. I mean, yes, NASA, I don't know if that speaks. I don't know.
Does it play to their target audience's ego? And this is interesting because I literally just said how much I felt cooler for using Slack, but looking at their marketing, I don't know that I would be oh, that's for people like me. It's just so generic. It's like every other B2B website. It is sans serif type with big letters and then a background color, a shape.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing a lot of ego here. It does feel a little distinctive though, and I think that's the last key, right? It does feel slightly more distinctive than folks like we have here in the in old blue and white website land.
Yeah. But think about how much fun, I mean, I go, you guys would have a field day. Like how much fun you would have with the logo and like integrating it into other pieces of the site. It's so colorful. It's so recognizable. Like there's so many ways that they could be creative here. And they're just, again, they're playing it safe, or they have this really great word of mouth network effect that they don't need, I don't know, the front end. I mean, all businesses need that front end. So
Yeah. All right, let's move on. So then I took a look at MailChimp.
Oh, this is
This is now Intuit MailChimp. And their website this is their homepage. It's a lot. So from a brand perspective, I mean, I feel like they're, again, like another very ubiquitous brand. Everyone knows about MailChimp. Do they have a clear and valuable offering? Their headline's pretty good. Turn emails into money, right? Like it says, turn emails into revenue. Win new customers with the #1 email marketing and automations brand that recommends ways to get more opens, clicks, and sales. So yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of that clear offering. They're telling me it's valuable. Also, apologize if you can hear the train. We got a Chicago train right next to our studio. But I'm seeing zero culture.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling like I would be cooler for using this product. Their brand looks, I mean, this is a very Microsoft brand, right? And then again, Intuit is not a cool company. And so I feel like MailChimp has been intuited a little bit, if I can turn it into a verb.
But MailChimp used to be so cool. So I remember, I don't know if you were using MailChimp, but about 10 years ago, okay, maybe 10 years ago, I feel like I was one of the first like real MailChimp users. And I don't know, in the first couple of years. And I remember just because I had an account, again, like 10, maybe even 11 or 12 years ago, I remember they sent me a t-shirt with a big, their logo on it. And it was such a good quality t-shirt. And it was one of these things of like, holy shit, like this, like, how did they get that? How did they have my email, my physical home address? And like, I was so delighted by this. And I felt like their branding previously, it had all of the makings of building this like cult following that they have now. Like it was different. It was funny. It was cheeky. It was this. I mean, obviously a big acquisition like Intuit is going to change that vibe. But I feel like this is a very clear example of like the brand helped to build that culture. Unlike Slack, where I never knew anything great about their branding, but at MailChimp, and talk about cheeky, talk about doing something different, right? It's like a freaking monkey, right? It's different than Constant Contact, for example, right?
That's what's so disappointing is like they did have some quirkiness and playfulness to this brand, and now it has just been fully sucked out.
Yeah.
All right. And then this is Squarespace. So pardon me. Squarespace is a website for websites. It's a website for small businesses and founder-driven brands, kind of like ours. So in their website, there's a lot more to this site than what you see here. But they have a clear and valuable offering. It says a website makes it real, which I think is a big emotional driver. As a person who, I call our branding moments a Pinocchio moment when we reveal the big brand for a business, because they're like, oh, I'm a real boy, Geppetto.
Exactly.
That headline really resonates with me personally, because that's the gift of brand and design into a website, to like the second you have a website, you have a real company. So I do think they are offering that clear and valuable offering. I think they, as you go through the Squarespace site, this is just kind of one vignette. There are many vignettes on the site that you go through. And they do have a vibe and a culture. It's very high style, like it's an elevated look and feel. You want to be part of it. It's very retail kind of oriented, because they have a lot of retail sites they're going for. I think it does play to my ego. It makes me feel like this is a more sophisticated B2B site, especially when you look at everything else that's out there. I come here and I think my site's not going to look like all those other websites. And that's really the key value prop that they have. And then does it feel
I think it's also a really good example. Like I love using, and I always tell this to the founders that I mentor, but this is another example, like CRMs, right? If you're like a CRM or a website builder site, right, you could service everyone. But to be able to stand up and say, like, I am the CRM for lawyers, or I am the website builder for e-commerce, right? Once you start narrowing in on that, again, you get that hell yeah by the people that you serve. Because yes, could a lawyer use MailChimp? Okay, sure, fine. It's going to practically do all the same things. But when you create a brand around who are these people, who are your people, and that resonates through all of this communication, your conversion rate's going to be much higher because they're going to look and they'll say, this is for me. That's the 100% of the 10%. And Squarespace does that so well because you look at Wix, a Wix is, as we say in Miami, un poco de todo. Like, they've got everything. They've got hotels, they've got e-com, they've got that. They're trying to capture everyone. But Squarespace has come out, I think, as the front runner. Like for e-commerce, like if you're not on Squarespace, like it is really ubiquitous with having a professional e-commerce business. Like they're the front runners. They're the creme de la creme. And
Shopify, but
yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. So actually, I'm thinking more of Shopify for that.
Shopify, yeah. But I still like Squarespace is for someone who wants a site that's going to look polished.
Yes, you're right.
And has that elevated moment, which is super important. And like, yeah, I think compared to Wix, like, come on, who would you rather work with? Exactly. And I know some people might be thinking, well, my target audience is more established professionals. They're probably in their 40s or 50s, so they might not want to do something super trendy. I think that's BS. I think that older Gen Z and younger millennials are early adopters that then make it cool for everyone else. So you think about it, not every product is like this, but a lot of products, if you can get those younger people, like my team was using Slack before I was, and I have my Gen Z employees. Yeah. And when you appeal to younger demographics, it kind of goes up the food chain of age.
I agree.
Which is, not a really great euphemism, but we're going to coin that. We're going to make t-shirts, the food chain of age.
Yeah, I love that.
And then before we wrap it up, I thought it'd be helpful to walk through, both that foundational phase that we talked about, and then how do we judge brands, et cetera, and just show you a case study of a B2B brand that we created here.
Yes.
So this was a case study for Halva LLP. And Halva LLP is a New York City-based law firm specializing in intellectual property and business law for emerging and evolving companies.
This is going to be juicy. This looks really boring, but I'm sure you made it fun.
I'm excited. So our whole opportunity was to craft a bold identity for a woman-led firm that really wanted to stand out. Wendy Halva is one of the most amazing IP attorneys in New York, and she had a reputation for working with artists, for really creative class people, but across industries as well. And it was time for her to leave her current firm and go out on her own. So she wanted to craft a brand that was her brand for her law firm, and that was also going to be an all-woman law firm. So we knew from the very beginning that we wanted to stand out and not look like the old boys club. So just some considerations before I dig into what it looked like. We knew that this had to be a really delicate balance between being powerful and empowering, and outsiders versus insiders, which is a really interesting thing that came out of our discovery and our conversations with Wendy and her team. We wanted to have a dash of disruption, but we still need to be super legitimate in a very conservative industry. Law is an extremely conservative industry. So we wanted to, have that personality I've been talking about, but not too much. Like, we respect their guardrails, especially in B2B. We wanted it to have some teeth, be a little bit edgy. We wanted to cast Wendy as a trailblazer, and she is. So it makes a lot of sense. And then voice is really, really key with this brand. This industry uses such similar language. The style had to shine through everything that we do. Like, a law firm with style. Come on. Have you ever seen that in your entire life? No. And we took a look at the competition. Look at this. Click Farber. Our clients are innovators. This is all taken from their websites. Cooley LLP. Our clients are innovators and disruptors. JRM. Lawyers for innovators.
And they trademarked it.
That's trademarked. So all of these are trademarked by respective owners. Please don't sue me. But it was that the competition was just like, we work with innovative people. We work with innovative people. We work with innovative people. So we knew we were not going to dip our toe into that. So the big idea for Wendy's firm was that we're building something bigger, we're building something better together. So this is a brand that's about inclusivity. It is about you and I are on the same team. We are growing something big together. The voice then landed on this super motivated, cool-headed, but also smart AF. Like,
Yeah, I love that.
really
I love that.
brilliant brand. And for the mark, we ended up with this very kind of fashion-inspired logo mark. It says Howell LLP Law Firm, New York. It has this beautiful H that was inspired by the scales of justice. So we took the scales of justice, flipped them upside down to create this very fashion-inspired mark. It's motivated, it's cool. It has like this blend of, kind of like angular lines, nothing like you've ever seen for a law firm.
I love
brand,
it. Oh, this is
or the brand palette or wardrobe, as we say, it was, it's like condensed all caps, serif typeface. The colors were very black and like this warm gray green color, cream, and then like a little like soft lime and an orange, which is just like, again, you've never seen anything like this in law. We were really inspired by kind of like fashion, black and white photography as well. And you see how this palette comes together in her letterhead, which is like really clean and sophisticated, super straightforward. We also went out to New York and did this really awesome photo shoot where everything was very fashion inspired. That's Wendy on the right with her team. Yeah. We did street shots in New York. So like just her website is filled with images of her like walking across these crosswalks in New York City. Everything's black and white or kind of like this like dark blue, green and white. Everyone just looks like a total badass.
Yes, absolutely. I love this. This is so cool.
The opposite of feminine, like, which, as an all-woman law firm, like, of course, there's, we were talking a lot about how, like, this is the exact opposite of boss bitch. Like, there's part of my potty mouth, but like, there's, a lot of women law firms are like 18 girls in pink suits and power poses. And this is never going to be that. Like, this is New York City, baby. Like, we're cool. We're just cool and casual.
Oh, I love it.
The website, shows one of our power statements, serving independent spirits. And so this website is all black and gray. It has like her logo mark, little hints of that lime green. Very clean, sophisticated, but not super counterculture, just a little edgy. And then
just
one of my favorite
and the black still, and the black. Yeah, sorry, I was going to say the black really anchors it too. So it gives it that seriousness, right? Which I love.
And the copy is really inspiring. So we wanted to blend in this balance. And what I love about brand is that you could have this balance between the tone of voice and the visuals. So the messaging and the copywriting is really inspiring, but then the brand is very professional and kind of grounded and a little moody and playful. And then we wrote her a manifesto because why not? Right. And so the manifesto lives on her site. It says, we are building something better together, something bigger for all of us. Here we celebrate independent spirit and show the courage of our convictions. No shortcuts, no half measures. No hedging bets. We keep moving forward. We embrace candor. We listen. We hear. We care for one another. And we deeply respect curiosity. These are the values that drive us. This is how our clients feel confident. This is how our clients get the right answers. This is how we can all win together.
That's really nice.
So I love a good manifesto.
Yeah.
So that's a great example of kind of how we bring brand all full circle and let someone stand out in a way that's super on brand.
Yeah. And again, like talking about who they serve, like going right back to the customer, you can see how this site and this brand that you created speaks more to innovators than simply saying we work for innovators. Like we represent innovators, right? Which the other brands are doing. You're kind of showing and not telling, right? Which is such an important thing to do with brand. This is so great. Well, so what's the website? So if anyone listening wants to check out the actual site, they can go to the URL and they can take a peek at what the branding looks like.
Yeah, it's Heilbutt LLP, HEILBUT, Heilbutt, LLP.com.
Okay.
And
we'll put that in the show notes as well.
I cannot recommend Wendy enough. She is truly an independent spirit. And
true badass.
Her discovery was so exciting because she's just like this power New York woman, but she grew up like almost on like a collective in the country, like wandering around the field. Like she has like a really unorthodox kind of hippie upbringing. And then now she's like this, Manhattanite power IP lawyer. Like, anyway, she brings all of that to the table. And so like, there's just such an amazing heart in how she works with people that even though it's this very urbane and urban brand, she is just super grounded and crazy easy to speak with and work with, and a lot of heart. And so all of that comes through in her brand. But that is a very founder brand.
I love that as an example, because I think everyone can see like law, like lawyers in general, like it seems like a very boring, a very mundane, everyone is doing all the same, and you kind of don't even see where the opportunity is. But going through this exercise with you just now, I hope this has unlocked for people that no matter what their vertical is and what their product or service is, there is opportunity, right, to tell your story and to have your brand be something that is unique and sells and sells to the right people, right? That the brand can help sell for you because someone's going to come, they're going to see, they're going to read, they're going to feel, and they're going to say, that is for me, right?
Yeah.
That 100% of that 10% is what you want your brand to speak to. So, Scout, this has been so cool. This has been such a great insight into your process, because I think, again, a lot of us, when we do brand, yeah, maybe we have a logo. I think like we make some abstract mission or vision, but what you've showed us today really like puts all of the puzzle pieces together, right? It's like we're doing this pre-work, and a lot of people just stop at the pre-work because they don't know how to bridge that gap. So with that, could you share a little bit about how, like, if someone wanted to work with you in your studio, what does that look like? And then how can people kind of follow you and all you're doing? Because you share great stuff on social. So where do you like to hang out? But I think before you kind of share all those details, I think founders would like to say, like, practically, what does it mean? What are the steps? How long does it take? Right? What do they need to prepare? Because maybe some founders are thinking like, gosh, like, I don't even know what my brand personality would be. Like, I don't even know where to start. So what does the process look like to work with you guys?
Yeah, great question. Back to the homework, literally nothing. It is in you already. Like we have our clients do no homework. We spend about 60, 90 minutes talking with you and getting to know your brand and your backstory and who you are as a human. Like we really believe that founders have to be able to walk around in that brand. Otherwise it's never going to work, right? Like you have to feel great about your brand. So you have to thread the needle between something that is appealing to your core audience, makes them want to click that button, but also something that feels really good and authentic to you. You know, so we're designing a brand for, it's a really fun, it's in the spirits world, but it's a consumer brand. And it's for two people who are, you know, they're kind of conservative. I mean, they are very Upper West Side, like buttoned up. And then the brand and the product is really fun and playful. And so we were like, how do we still make this a product that when they're at the trade show, they feel good, you know, like they feel like they're so much of our discovery work really leans into your own personal story, your motivation, your journey, on top of your product and service. Because again, like it's not what you're doing, it's how you make people feel and how you make people feel organically within you. So that said, you know, we always begin with that discovery interview, get to know founders. And then we move into that brand strategy phase where, you know, I laid it all out here. Like everything I showed you is pretty much what we do here at the studio. So we're going to take a look at your brand spirit, your point of view, your core talking points or tenets, we call them. We're going to get into, you know, that voice work and how your brand sounds and feels. We're also going to develop a full messaging platform for you. So you're going to have like that deck of like, okay, here's what I give to PR. Here's what I give to, you know, that investor I'm pitching next week. And so you have all that messaging, and we do all of that before we even begin to think about the visuals for your brand. That part of the process is 3 to 4 weeks. And then the whole process all told is 8 to 12 weeks. So at that point, my team takes all of that amazing approved brand strategy. We know exactly what we're doing. We put heads down, we kind of bury an ostrich for 4 or 5 weeks, and we come back with 3 fully fleshed out brands for you to review. And that includes logos, secondary marks, tertiary marks, that palette that I showed you guys. But you're going to see real world test projects. So you're going to see, you know, 4 or 5 examples of your brand coming to life. I like to do something on the web, something in print, and then usually something experiential. So something like at a trade show or in a space, you know, that makes sense for your brand. And it's really so our team can visualize and put together all of our pieces, stress test them, but so that you can see that brand coming to life. And it's not just fonts and logos on the page, it's like a whole brand. And then, you know, your you're left with a fully actualized brand standards that blends all those pieces together. So you're going to see your positioning statements, you're going to see all of your compass work or that brand strategy, and you leave knowing what the choices are, what's the right choice for your brand from here on out. And it's incredibly powerful, and it makes everything in your marketing easier, faster, more consistent, more effective from here on out.
That's awesome.
So that's kind of how we work with clients.
I love it. And then of course you can play around your website, which is such a cool website, but you can see like so many examples of what you got and the work that you guys have done. So share the URL for the website. We'll also put it in the show notes, but for anyone listening. And also, where can everyone find you and hang out with you online?
Yeah, our website is designscout.com. And on there, I highly encourage you to check out our video, which is really fun to make.
It's
where you
so
go through
fun.
all of our brands that we've worked with.
I love it a lot.
It's so funny. It's very Wes Anderson inspired, but it was before the whole Wes Anderson internet trend. So I'm a little mad that everyone was like, make a Wes Anderson video.
Yeah.
But so anyway, check out our video on our website. There's lots of case studies, both in B2B brands, B2C brands, food and beverage, you name it. But every client that we work with is really that passionate, brave, founder-driven brand.
Yeah.
I'm also really active on LinkedIn, so you can get a lot of the same advice I gave today and little snippets on my LinkedIn profile. Just look for Scout Driscoll. And then we're on Instagram at Design Scout as well. And then if you're in the wine and spirits world, I have a whole separate division focused on the wine and spirits world called Vint, VINT. You can take a look at that. So
that is very
Tori,
cool.
So great. Thank you so much for letting me come and speak today. I know that what you're doing with founders is so critical. And so I'm really happy to be part of their journey as they hit those next thresholds in revenue and growth and just nail it.
Absolutely. Well, we're all about getting to the next phase and growing the business 7 figures and beyond. And when you get to that level of growth, brand becomes that much more important, right? Doing the bare minimum may get you, to that comfortable 6-figure realm. But if you really want to be a multi-million dollar operation, like that differentiation, that brand, having that be upgraded is going to carry you to the next phase. So I'm so happy to have introduced everyone to you, Scout, because you're so fabulous. And thank you so much for all this today. I think it really shed a lot of light and clarity on the process to something that I think these passionate founders, they want it, but they just don't know how to get there. So I think now they have a great roadmap. And of course, I hope reach out to you directly for upgrading some brands, because I think that's absolutely necessary for a lot of people that are listening, that they just need to commit and get to that next level. So thank you so much.
If anyone watching wants me to take a look at their brand, I offer a free 30-minute brand consult. So I would love to walk through some of these questions about brands with you for your brand and let you know what we can do to make it better.
So cool. All right. Thank you so much, Scout.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. Thanks for sticking around with me and listening all the way to the end. I really appreciate you as an audience member, and I hope that you found this helpful. If you did like this episode, it would mean so much to me if you subscribed, if you rate and review this podcast. It helps other people know that this podcast has something worth saying. It also would be super awesome if you could take a screenshot and share on Instagram and tag me at Ugly Ventures, UGLI Ventures, VENTURES. I am always so appreciative to hear from you, and I hope to see you back here next week on the Marketing for Startups podcast.